Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, FP Santangelo Jr., Russell Jackman. Hopefully, Vern will join us a little bit later on. Each commercial break, we're going to ask a sports trivia question. Today's theme is the World Series. We got to figure, since the World Series just ended, we got to have at least one more baseball theme. And Russell, don't worry, these are not ones from 1903 or those kind of questions. All right.
I hope we move to the NBA soon.
We will. We'll stay with football.
Then I have a chance.
All right. And when we come back, various topics we're going to talk about are the Commanders. I'm sorry. I have a hard time with the Commanders still.
I don't have a problem with it at all.
Well, no, not the name. The name itself is fine. It's just I'm still trying to get used to like the fact that Cleveland changed, the baseball team changed their name too. You know, it's not like everything with a C. Okay. Also, it was kind of nice to see the Astros winning without any scandal. I don't think there was any scandal this time, was there?
There was a few in game one. People were accusing the pitcher of putting some stuff on the baseball. And there's an illegal bat used, but it wasn't that big of a deal compared to what everybody else does. So. Okay.
I know FP's got a lot of good stuff to cover. If we have time, I wanted to get into a little bit of the Kyrie Irving getting suspended 5 games. And also, we don't talk much about hockey, but the Boston Bruins are parting ways with a controversial prospect. And I just wanted to kind of get your guys' opinion about, not so much into the deep dive of the political part, but where it might kind of lead in the future with regard to other players having input is more the topic. Because I know that, see, I'm on one side of the equation, Russell's on the other side, and FP is a good balancing act between us, trying to keep things straight and narrow. Come on, guys. Sports Econ 101. All right. All right. You are listening to Sports Econ 101. This segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by Pacific Private Money, still providing mortgage investments currently yielding either 7, 8, or 9%. Pick your choice. Secured by real estate. Doesn't get any more conservative than that. Check them out at pacificprivatemoney.com. Stay with us, or we'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown, FP Santangelo Jr., Russell Jackman. I'm sorry, audience, for laughing, but again, on the one side of the aisle, we have Mr. Russell Jackman, who's very liberal. On the other side, we have Edward Brown, who is definitely more conservative, and good old FP balances us out. Okay.
Well, and it's voting day out here, even though by the time this airs, you know, America will be on one side or the other, but today is election day. So
we record the show on Tuesdays. Okay. FP, why don't you start us off? You have a lot of good topics.
Yeah, so the Astros win the World Series. Yay. It was a pretty good series, all things considered. I thought it was pretty spectacular how the Phillies, came out. They won a few games at home. The crowds on both sides were incredible, but the Astros came out on top. Dusty Baker becomes the 3rd African-American manager ever in baseball history to win a World Series. He joins Dave Roberts and Cito Gaston, which is pretty cool. So
that's right.
I thought it was cool, all things considered. I know a lot of people aren't really happy out there because of the whole cheating scandal in 2017, but I think this puts to rest a lot of things that's brought up in the scandal. I think there's only 3 players from that 2017 roster that were actually on this 2022 roster. So I'm really happy for Dusty Baker at the end of the day. And I'm kind of happy for Mattress Mac, too. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but Jim McIngvale, I believe his name is, McIngvale, a.k.a. Mattress Mac, put down, I think it was a $10 million bet before the season started, for the Astros to win the World Series. What's going on, Vern?
Hey, man.
Right now. And he ends up taking home $75 million. It's the biggest return in sports history. And he told Fox 26, the local station out there in Houston, that the $75 million will be mostly paid out to his customers as part of a gallery furniture chain promotion. So he's not taking it all home. He's going to be spreading the wealth a little bit.
That's awesome. Boy, I tell you, after game 1, he must have been a little frustrated.
Oh, yeah. And then I looked up earlier in this season when he put down that bet, he said previously he's lost about 15 million in bets previously before this. So, and all the bets he's put on the Astros before, I think he put on a bet against the Rams last Super Bowl, all these different things. He's lost about 15 million in his lifetime. So he put down 10 million this year. He's 71 years old. He said, screw it. And he walks away with 75 million.
It kind of makes up for all those losses, probably. Well, what? In fact, I was listening to the radio coming in, and the Powerball is 2.04 billion. Just even the 04 is $40 million. Can you believe
Oh my-
that? Someone
That's great.
someday is going to win that. That's just incredible. Yeah, it's interesting. It's weird. I'm happy for Dusty, but there's still part of me that's frustrated about the 2002 World Series. The
Yeah.
Giants had it in their
Oh
hands.
yeah.
And it's like you just no. Was it Leon Hernandez was pitching?
Russ Ortiz.
Ortiz.
It's Ortiz. Yeah. Okay, that's right. Wrong guy. Well, good for him. Good for him. You know, you make a very, very good point about the fact that there was only 3 players who, I guess, what was it? Gurriel, Altuve, and Bregman. Were those?
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
Whatever. And so, you know, to punish, you know, all of have this real cloud over the whole team because of something that happened before they got on there, which is kind of ridiculous.
And Verlander finally got the monkey off his back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, boy.
got the monkey off his back. He got a nice World Series win. He kind of felt like he was a part of the whole thing. By the way, I texted Dusty Baker the morning of the game. I just said, "Hey, go out there and get it," and he certainly did. And so he's got a World Series ring as a player. He's got one as a manager.
Do you think he's
Things
going
are
to
complete
retire?
for this guy.
Do you think that will lead to his retirement now?
There are reports today that he's talking with a contract extension with the owner. I think his name is Jim Crane, if I'm not mistaken, of the Houston Astros. And him and the GM are about to get extensions. They're going to try to run it back.
Wow.
Back-to-back World Series chances.
So what? I guess he was on the what was it? The '81 World
Yes,
Series?
81 Dodger team.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I was gonna say he wouldn't have been on the '88 one. So yeah,
No,
that's right. Yeah, that was one of our trivia questions one time. Was what's the only team that won the World Series twice in the same decade in the '80s? And it was the Dodgers. No,
Yep.
he was at a different team every single year except for them. Let's see. Moving on, the Washington Commanders. Is it going to be Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk? Is there going to be a new owner other than those 2 guys?
Mattress guy.
Mattress guy, man. He'll buy him for $75 million.
Well, you know what? $75 million is a lot of money, but that's not going to even sniff an NFL team. So
No.
this team is reportedly trying to go for upwards of $7 billion. And there's a group coming together that consists of Jeff Bezos, Jay-Z, and now Matthew McConaughey, among others, that want to get together to buy this team, which I think is a very interesting group of people. I'd love to join them for dinner.
How
But
rich
that's
is
the report.
Matthew McConaughey?
I don't know. It's just, this is
I mean, what's
all
he got to be worth? 50
the-
million, maybe? I can't. I
I
don't
don't
know.
know.
He made some really good investments or something.
I thought Matthew McConaughey. I thought he had political aspirations.
Yeah.
I didn't know about him
He
being an
grew up a
owner.
huge Washington fan, football fan
Oh.
in that area. So I think that's where it kind of comes from. I think he's just a huge football fan of the
God, he
Washington.
grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
I know, but
As long
I
as
think he's a huge fan. I think I remember him saying that on a podcast. So pretty
As long
interesting.
as it's
Wow,
not the
being in Texas
Saudis.
and rooting for
As
the
long-
Redskins all those years. Oh man, he must have had to hide that one.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
As long as it's not the Saudis, they can't find a worse owner than Snyder. So
Yeah.
you know, they'll be okay. I think whoever they get.
7
It's gonna be
billion though. I
important.
mean, how much are the Cowboys worth? How much are the Raiders worth? I mean, 7 billion seems kind of excessive, doesn't it?
I mean,
you
for
get
an
what-
NFL
yeah, I mean,
team, that seems
Yeah.
about right in the ballpark. I think I can see. I believe Dan Snyder originally bought the team for $300 million in 2002. I think that's what the report was. I could mess up the year or the number, but I think it was around 350 million. So think about that growth.
20 years. Now that's a healthy growth.
Yeah,
Years.
exactly. So,
You know what,
but
I'd
how
say
these-
healthy
just-
growth. Joe Lacob and Peter Guber
Yeah.
buying the Warriors for what, 350 million, and now, geez, how many billions is it worth?
Yeah.
Almost
Well,
2.
Well, you know, it's funny. I read something in the paper earlier. I think it was a couple of days ago. Like this day in history in 2013 was Twitter's opening on the stock market, and it opened for $33 billion, and Musk buys it for what, 44 billion, which is only a 33% return over 10 years. And so the annualized rate of return on that's like about 2.5% maybe. So it's a lot different in the baseball, football, or I mean.
I just looked this up, guys. So I just want to, sorry, I completely butchered the numbers. I was thinking about more of the Warriors. Vern just reminded me, but Dan Snyder back in 1999 bought the Washington Redskins at the time for $750 million. So 750 to about 7 billion.
Okay,
in
so
20 years.
going 10 times, but it took them 23 years to do that.
Yeah, and he might get more than 7 billion too. So that's pretty interesting.
I'll have to figure that out on my calculator during the
Yeah.
time. Okay.
Man.
Let's see here. You guys ready for our first trivia question? So Vern, you joined us just a little bit late. We figured since the World Series is over, you have to at least have one more World Series question.
Sure, why not?
Questions. And these questions are not going to be quite as ridiculous as I usually have them. You know, the 1903.
We'll be the judge of that.
You know,
We'll be the judge of that.
you'll be the judge. Oh, yeah, okay. You guys better know this one. All right. In the 2000 World, I had 200 World Series. 2000 World Series. Who threw a bat at Mike Piazza? Okay, that's our trivia question. No, that one's not too hard. You guys should remember that. That was only what 22 years ago, right? But that's a major thing that everyone who's
The answer to that said he just like momentarily just checked out and just reacted. He didn't realize what he was doing at the
yeah,
time.
he didn't actually like.
Yeah.
It appeared like he threw the bat at Piazza, but apparently he really did. And in
Well,
fact,
Piazza looked at him like, what
yeah,
are you doing?
Yeah. And in fact, didn't they have that in the last game or the second to last game of the World Series? The bat went over the pitcher's head after the broken bat. Oh yeah, that went like way over his head.
Mhm.
All right. Email Edward at sportsecon101.com. The answer to this question in the 2000 World Series: who threw a bat at Mike Piazza? All right. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be right back. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown, FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, and Russell Jackman. Got a foursome here. You know what? One more, we'll have a poker game. All right. First trivia question. In the year 2000, the World Series, who threw a bat at Mike Piazza? Anyone?
Roger Clemens.
Roger Clemens, yeah. Broken bat, kind of went. I still remember it in my mind, too, exactly what happened. Broken bat, he gets it, he just kind of throws it, you know. He didn't really throw it at him, but I guess he was kind of going down the line a little bit. All right, so just going back, so you guys were mentioning that the Washington Commanders, back then the Redskins, were purchased for $750 million 22 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And potentially he might.
1999.
1999. Okay, actually
23 years.
23.
Yeah. And
My son was born in 1999, so I know. So it's 23. That's
okay. And
easy math.
And it
And
turns.
he hasn't grown in appreciation the same way that the team.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, and potentially he might walk away with $7 billion. All right. So now I want you to tell me what the rate of return is on a compounded monthly basis. It went up almost 10 times in 23 years. What do you think the rate of return was? It's not bad. It's just not great.
15%.
9.75% because of compounding. So it's not bad. Again, not bad, especially during the last few years when rates of return were really low. But it's not this extravagant. Oh my gosh, you must have made 100% a year type of thing.
The thing about this, though. The thing about this, the team hasn't had success at all in the past 23 years, though. If they would have won playoff games or won Super Bowl, that would have exploded. The compounding interest would have exploded. They haven't won a Super Bowl.
How much more than $7 billion would you have gotten?
I think you would have probably got about 8 or 9. I think it would have been at least $1 more billion if they would have won something, especially a Super Bowl. Are you kidding me? That would have been huge.
Okay, if he gets $8 billion, they would get 10.34%. You know, it's so funny.
You gotta win.
When I took statistics in college back in 1978, I remember our professor trying to teach us about compound interest. And he says, you know how Manhattan was sold or purchased, let's say, from the Native Americans for like, was it the equivalent of like $26 or something? And now Manhattan, and even back in the 1970s, right, was worth billions of dollars. But remember, interest rates were higher when I was in college, right? I mean, they were starting to approach 12, 15%. He goes, yep. He goes, the Native Americans got the best of that deal. Because if you would have taken $26 back in 16, whatever, and invested it at, 15% compounded return, which is what you could have gotten like when I was in college, right? It
Yeah.
would have been like $1 trillion. So,
Wow.
so we say we took advantage of the Native Americans. Like, no, they actually took advantage of us. Not really, but I mean, from a rate
Yeah.
of return standpoint, because they took that $26, invested it in various beads, and then flipped it, and then turned it into other things and made
They bought IBM.
and they bought IBM. Exactly. Okay. Moving on here. Let's see. Okay, I want to ask you guys a question about this. There's two kind of potentially controversial type things. Okay, so Kyrie Irving gets suspended for at least 5 games. And again, we're recording the show on Tuesday. I picked this up over the weekend. The Nets want him to verbally apologize, complete sensitivity training, and meet with Jewish leaders before he can return to endorsing a controversial film. And remember, I was brought up Jewish, okay? So, but I'm trying to be completely just on the level here. So I'm kind of looking, I'm going, so what's next? What happens if a player endorses, let's say, Trump in 2024? Are they going to, if it's not the mainstream? Remember, he didn't produce the film. All he did was just kind of put it out there, and whether it's conspiracy theory or what. I mean, you got the head of Iran saying the Holocaust never happened, right? So, are people allowed to have their own opinions on things? It's like, is he representing the team so much that it's such a, you know what I mean?
This is all about image, and no one, especially someone with millions of followers on social media, no one wants to be associated with being anti-Semitic. I mean, nobody wants any kind of tie to Hitler, Holocaust, any of that. Anyway, so this book comes out, a film comes out, which is very anti-Semitic, and then Kyrie Irving promotes it on his social media pages, his Instagram page. I don't have his page in front of me, but I don't know how many millions of followers, but he has millions of followers that believe everything he says. When he says, "I think the world is flat," people are going to believe that. Yeah. Now he has since retracted that and said, "No, I was wrong about that." But
about the Earth being flat.
He says and does a lot of wacky things. I mean, he is an odd duck. And so when he came out with that, all of the people that he endorses, the shoe contract and all this kind of stuff. I mean, they don't want to have ties for that. That hurts their sales.
Okay, no, I understand. Let's say a shoe contract says, you know what, we don't want to have anything to do with that. But
let me finish.
Go ahead.
Kyrie Irving is one of the top players in the NBA, and the NBA, image-wise, especially what happened with China, the NBA, they don't want to have anything to do with that. And the NBA already knows that Kyrie Irving is a problem to begin with. So now you have this, and then they put him up on a tee to come in front of cameras and just say, "Well, I was wrong. I'm really sorry about that." And he didn't even do that.
No.
Yeah.
So the commissioner, Adam Silver, who is Jewish, calls him in on the carpet, and then at the end, he's suspended without pay. I mean, they have to make it hurt. And since then, all these people that he is, I mean, he's almost kind of become the Kanye West of the NBA. I mean, people are just dropping him.
Back. So the thing is, it's like, I mean, if you're going to go that far, then why doesn't the team either say nobody's allowed to have any no social media, nobody's allowed to have it. That's what's part of the policy. If you want to be with our company, our team, no social media at all, or everything that you put out has to come through us. I mean, I may be being a little bit aggressive on this, but I mean, that's one way to control it. But then where's the free speech part? I don't agree with what he said, but how many times have you said, on my death, defending your right to say?
Yeah, but Edward, I mean, I have to be careful about what I post, and I have all these social media pages. I mean, I rep, even as I'm on with you, I represent CBS.
Yeah,
if I just
you're extremely thoughtful of everything you say, but
have to be,
and I appreciate. I honestly appreciate that. Go ahead, Effie.
Well, I'm just going to say you can't tell a professional athlete that market themselves and use advertisement dollars promoting other, products such as shoes or food or whatever to not use social media in this day and age. They lose tens of millions of dollars, maybe even $100 million. So that's just out of the
Okay,
question.
how about saying go through them though to them for them to?
So they do. So I've worked with PR people. Vern has too, right? And what you do is that they listen to everything. Trust me. Every interview, every little podcast I go on, every social media post, there's a group of people that work for a team that monitor everything and go, hey, we think you should take this down. Like, hey, this reflects bad on our
Not only that,
organization.
but how about before it even goes on? Like,
Yeah, they
take a look at it before you even post it, right? Could you do that?
Yeah, but that's taking a little bit too much control because at the end of the day, they're their own business, right? They're their own entity, right? So LeBron James is a business, right? He's not part. He's part of the Lakers, but he is his own business too, right? But I just want to say, like, if you want to get into political affiliations, which I know you're trying to get into a little bit, Tom Brady openly endorsed Trump, right? And he won a Super Bowl, and everybody was fine with that, right? Neymar, for example, one of the biggest names in soccer, just down here in Brazil, promoted Bolsonaro, who has ties with homophobia and other things. He doesn't have any contracts that are getting torn up. So it's just a matter of you got to be bigger than the situation, I guess. And if you believe in something, you believe in something. But it's a free market, right? So fans can choose to not purchase things that he does now.
Absolutely. But to suspend a guy from it because he.
Well, the difference is that's political affiliation, right? But this is hate speech, and hate speech is illegal. Hate crimes are illegal around the world, right? In the U.S., we're fine, right? We're protected by an amendment. But if he goes to Canada and he says that, he could get arrested.
Yeah,
and Edward, here's the big thing, Edward. I mean, the big thing, he was told to apologize by the league, and he did not apologize.
Yeah.
If CBS tells me to apologize, and I go in front of me and I don't apologize, there's going to be consequences.
Yeah.
We're not doing what I was told to do.
And again, I don't agree, and I don't know much about it. It just from what I've heard about it, I would not agree with it. I wouldn't endorse the film. I'd probably be exactly like everybody else here and say this is disgusting, But I'm wondering, what about companies like, not companies? What about organizations like the ACLU? Don't they come to people's defense like that? Like, if a KKK
they can't.
Thing is marching down the street,
because it's not.
Let them do it.
You guys have to remember that the First Amendment covers government regulation of speech.
Yeah,
it does not cover private companies. It's not the First Amendment does not protect you from repercussions.
That's a very good point. Very good point. Okay, anyway, let's get to our second commercial break. When we come back, I've got one other controversial thing to ask you guys about. Okay, second trivia question. In the 2001 World Series, which Arizona pitcher made his third start of the series in Game 7? So his third start was in Game 7. All right. In 2001 World Series, which Arizona pitcher made his third start of the series in Game 7? All right, still with us, Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, and Russell Jackman. Our second trivia question: in the 2001 World Series, which Arizona pitcher made his third start of the series in Game 7?
FP?
Curt Schilling.
Curt Schilling, yes. It's funny, we all remember Randy Johnson being the mow-down guy, but Curt Schilling, very good.
I remember the bloodied sock. Honing on the bloody sock.
I saw that.
Look at this guy. Oh, man, he comes out. He's injured. He's fighting for his team. Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? He's another one who had, because he's been, let's just say, a little out there in his aggressive speech, is being kind of blackballed, so to speak, So one other thing I wanted to mention, and I'll let FP's got a bunch of good stuff to talk about. Okay, so the Bruins part ways. Let's talk about the Boston Bruins here. They part ways with a controversial prospect after the players, the teammates, object. And apparently the reason was the prospect had bullied a black disabled person when he was in middle school. So you're talking about, I guess, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, something like that. So the question I have is, are we now going to see players' input for signing players in other leagues, NBA, whatever, because it appears, and again, from just what I read, is that the Bruins decided, at first they thought, hey, this guy's a good prospect. He's a good hockey player. Let's sign him. And then when the other players found out about who this guy was, they said, no, we don't, want you to do that. And so the team went ahead and said, okay, we're not going to do it. I wonder how many other times that has happened in the past or will happen in the future. And then also, what situations that happen to somebody in middle school affect what they're going to do many, many years later. Some people are saying, well, listen, if the guy's going to do that in middle school, he's already kind of stated the kind of person he is for the rest of his life. And that's definitely possible. So what are your guys' comments on something like that?
So I got two examples right out of the gate for you. So not a prospect, but a pretty famous pitcher, Trevor Bauer, when he was going through his situation, the word on the street was internally in the baseball circle that nobody in that clubhouse wanted to mess with him anymore. He thought he jeopardized himself, whether it was true or not, whether he committed sexual assault. Nobody in there wanted to deal with it, and nobody wanted to deal with him just because it rubbed a lot of the players the wrong way. And he hasn't been in that clubhouse since, and he's kind of been, I think he's been suspended by baseball. He has been suspended by baseball, but he's kind of been blackballed by baseball too.
Okay,
now, more information.
One, he's already on the team. So it's a little different.
Yeah.
And also, he was accused of that as an adult.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
And then number two, the number two example too, which is really funny you bring this up, is Josh Allen, the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, had tweets recently appear when he was 13 years old saying some homophobic slurs to his friends in Facebook and other things. And a lot of people were trying to use that against him, but he was probably 12, 13 years old, learned a new word. He's an adult now. He's learned the impact and the negativity and what those words can cause and the harm they can cause. So I think there's a certain age where you don't get a pass, but you can show that you've grown, right?
Yeah,
and kids are stupid at the end of the day.
Thing is, if we all look back at our life, I'm sure that we all did really stupid things when we were, 10 through 18. Your brain doesn't even form until it's what, 25, Yeah,
I think there's a grace period between like 7 and 14 years old. And then once you get to 15, 16, 17, 18, you understand the harm that you're doing, right? And you still can make stupid decisions. But I think with along the lines of bullying and words like that, I think you deserve a second chance the older you get. But if you're an adult, I don't think that stuff flies at all.
Yeah, no, and that's very, very good point. Vern and I remember the days, and I'll even throw Mr. Jackman in there too. Before social media. And so, there was none of that stuff. You maybe at school, you had an issue with somebody, and maybe a rumor went around the school, but that was about it. Right?
Yeah, bullying has always been around. The senior going after the freshman, he throws them in the trash can. There's stuff like that. But bullying is real. It happens in schools. It happens on teams.
Oh, I got bullied. I hated it. I've always. It's interesting because I still remember standing up to a bully who wasn't bullying me, but he was bullying somebody else, even weaker than I, and that was a major thing for me. I just hated that stuff. So I have I'm one of those guys. I really, really hate bullying a lot. Mm-hmm. But I kind of look at a situation like this and I go, gosh, you know what? Okay, let's again. How old was he at the time? And the kind of stuff he was doing. A disabled person. And then an opposite race person. It's nasty. I guess.
Well, then I wonder why you support Trump, but that's a different discussion for another.
I haven't heard anything racist about it, but that's another story. But it's like.
Well, remember how he made fun of that one reporter who had a disability. So this sort of thing does go on, and people still support it.
That was a famous clip. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I think the PR damage that you do here for the young guy and his agent's probably telling him this is that you go out and you do community service and you work with disabled people and then you show that you've learned something from your mistakes in the past. And I think that's how you feel.
That's perfect. You should be hired,
especially for an athlete that's trying to build a brand.
Yep.
And he's
remember Josh Hader was taken to task for just terrible tweets that he made. He had to retract and had to take it on to the first hand because it was affecting his trade value.
And we sort of circle back to Kyrie Irving. It's one thing when you realize that you've done something that's offensive and you say, oh my God, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry. I didn't realize the movie had these implications, or are you forced by having your arm wrung and, you know, forced in front of the camera by the league and told, you know, apologize?
Yeah.
It's the foot dragging and the reluctance of understanding that you've offended people that I think makes things way worse.
Well, have we heard from his teammates at all?
Yeah, Kyrie Irving wants everyone to just move on and doesn't understand why everyone's so upset. And I'll tell you something. Kevin Durant. Sorry. Kevin Durant, you know, pretends like this thing didn't even happen or wants.
Well, he came out with another statement, Russ, and he said that he denounced what he was doing. So
again, that's after everybody got mad at him. So it's those things don't hold a lot of water when, you know, you first come out and say, oh, why is everyone so upset about this?
Well,
and everyone
it's
says,
a
well, this is why
typical
we're upset.
apology. Are you apologizing because you got caught? Or are you apologizing because you really realized what you did?
For Durant, it was because he was upset that everyone was upset. He wasn't upset at what Kyrie Irving said.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so you kind of wonder if it was a different kind of situation where it maybe hit home with him. Like, you know,
a lot of times what can happen, and I'm not saying it happened in this case, in the case of Durant, because I've seen it, and FP has seen it too. I mean, these guys, they come to work, they come to games, come to practices, they go about their own business, how they go about, you know, training, conditioning, getting ready, getting mentally there, whatever. You know, there's a good chance that maybe, you know, one player has no idea what has happened with the other one. I mean, they don't check their IG page. They don't, you know, they're not constantly texting each other 10, 20 times a day. I mean, they don't know, you know, and so I could see a scenario where Katie would be like, why is everybody upset? Well, because maybe he was told maybe second, third, fourth hand, kind of a thumbnail sketch of kind of what happened, but he doesn't know the whole story. And then they come to him because he's a visible face of the team. And
because when you look at it, I mean, the professional athletes, they call it a profession for a reason. You know, I mean, that's what they do for a living, and you know, they mentally, it's like, you know, if I have some weird personal situation going on in my life, but then I've got to make a presentation of 500 people, you know, I got to really like try to push that aside. It's like I got to concentrate on what I'm doing in the moment. You know, and the professional athletes, I mean, they're performance all the time.
But Kevin Durant admits that he's a friend of Kyrie Irving, so that does bring him into a closer circle. He's not just someone that, you know, goes to practice with Kyrie. He's someone that supposedly is his friend, so he should know better.
Yeah, but maybe he doesn't know like what the film is really about. Like I don't know enough about it.
Well, I obviously too, these athletes that are friends with each other, right? They're not as plugged into social media. I know Kevin Durant is more so than anybody, so that's kind of a hard excuse for him. But these athletes, when you talk to them, they're so unplugged. They don't want anything to do with social media because there's just so much negativity their way. And then they think, okay, the media is blowing another story out of proportion. Like, I know what goes on with this team usually, and people are always running fake stories and sensationalizing our life, that they go, this is probably a nothing burger again. I'm just not going to pay attention to it. I've had so many athletes approach me about that. Like, dude, they don't even have a clue what's going on behind the scenes right now. Smart. And they're making these stories up, and it's a joke.
So somebody
when it gets to friendship, I mean, I'm sure Katie says, yeah, well, we're friends. I have friends at work, but I don't hang out with them.
Yeah.
When I see them at work, it's like, hey, you know, let's this project this way. Yeah, but as far as like hanging out on a regular basis, I don't hang out with anybody from work.
Somebody asked me if I tweeted. I said no, but I fart a lot. So
that counts as one of your dad jokes.
Yeah, I got a few of them there. Okay, guys, you were talking. We'll change subject. What was it? What was it about this Magic 8 you were talking about?
Magic 8.
Or with the players, Bonds and Schilling.
Oh yeah. That's. I mean, this for Giants fans. I mean, yeah, you love this because you know this is another chance for Barry Bonds to make the Hall of Fame. I mean, there is a era committee ballot procedure, and there are a list of 8 that are on this ballot who no longer are on the Baseball Writers Committee. Gotcha. And Albert Bell, Roger Clemens, Don Mattingly, Fred McGriff, Dale Murphy, Rafael Palmeiro, Kurt Schilling, and Barry Bonds are on this list. And so there's going to be a vote on December 4th. And if any of these guys get 12 of 16 votes, they're going to the Hall of Fame.
I think McGriff should. I was a big fan of McGriff.
Yeah, me too. Crime Dog. Love that guy. Yeah. And the thing is with Barry, you know, even if he didn't do the steroids, so he would have hit, you know, a little bit less home runs, et cetera, et cetera. He still would have been a Hall of Fame material.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Clemens too.
Yeah. Even though that's the thing, it's Clemens, he just never won the big one. And he kept losing when it's sort of like, who's the pitcher for the Dodgers?
Kershaw?
Kershaw. Yeah. It's same sort of thing. It's like he's got the potential for Hall of Fame, but it's like, yeah, he just can't seem to win that big one, you know? And same thing.
Well, if you count the 2020 World Series as a World Series, he did win one, but I don't think anybody really does. So,
no, that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't think it's a Hall of Fame without Barry Bonds. So I've already told everybody this. I boycott the Hall of Fame until Barry Bonds is in it. I'll never go until Barry Bonds is in it.
Okay.
It doesn't mean anything.
When you eventually
and I think a lot of kids are
as a baseball fan, when you eventually go as a baseball fan, you're gonna love it. That's great.
We'll see.
I don't remember it. Gosh, it was back that's 15 years ago. Okay. Third trivia question. We're talking World Series here. In again the 2001 World Series, who singled off Mario Rivera in the bottom of the 9th inning to give the Diamondbacks their first World Series championship? Which was kind of cool because you know, we had just come through September 11th and all that, so to have an exciting World Series was quite exciting. Okay, in 2001, the World Series, who singled off Mario Rivera in the bottom of the 9th inning to give the Diamondbacks their first World Series championship? All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be back with some closing comments. Don't touch that dial. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with FP Santangelo Jr., Vern Glenn, and Russell Jackman. See, I did it in that order because you guys are just showing up on the Zoom screen that way. All right, our third trivia question.
Its importance. It was.
Yeah. No, nothing to do with that. Okay, in 2001 World Series, who singled off Mario Rivera in the bottom of the 9th inning to give the Diamondbacks their first World Series championship?
Gonzo,
yeah.
Luis Gonzalez. Yeah.
See, I figured I gotta get you guys like some questions that I know that you can answer. All right, and they're weren't that easy, but they were easy enough. Effie, you made a good suggestion for people listening to about giving you a feedback on a tweet handle. Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys are listening, tweet at us. I'm at FP Junior on Twitter. I know Twitter's in the news a lot recently, so if you're hopping on Twitter, and tweet at Vern too. Vern's very active on Twitter as well. We need to get Russ on there, and then we'll have the whole party going.
That's it. So wait, is it that simple? FP Junior. That's pretty. Yeah. That's a good one.
FPJR.
Wow.
I'm on Twitter, but I never use it. I have never tweeted or received a tweet in my entire life.
And Vern, what's your Twitter handle, as they say?
It's at Vern KPIX.
There you go. Okay, we'll see. We'll see how many people do it. Okay. All right, you guys ready for our thoughts for the day? And again,
yes,
we just finished Halloween, so we have kind of a little theme there. Why did the skeleton start a fight? Because he had a bone to pick.
Oh yeah.
I gotta remember that one.
Yeah, Vern,
a bone to pick.
You missed the last one. I'll have to send you what last week's were because they were pretty good. Okay, and what happened to the cannibal who was late for dinner? They gave him the cold shoulder.
Oh, wow.
Pretty good. That was good.
Terrible joke.
I'm sorry, that was pretty
wow.
Good. All right, tune in next week. I should have flipped it. Did go on first and then ended up with the skeleton. Okay, tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
Oh,
hope you voted.